This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming a legend of the Bay Area in rock and roll, and I am talking about Alex Call. Alex was the lead singer of the country rock band Clover, which in its last few years, when they were having success in England, Huey Lewis was a member of the band, as well as the News keyboard player Sean Hopper. And Alex went on to record a great, and I do mean great, first solo album that was a staple on MTV with the hit single Just Another Saturday Night. And he also wrote the immortal classic 8675309 Jenny by Tommy Two-Tone, and he also wrote Pat Benatar's hit Little Too Late. And he has a memoir out, it's been out for a while, called 8675309 Jenny, the song that saved my ass for a while. And we're going to talk about all that stuff today, and I can't wait. I love talking to people who was in the Bay Area, you know, way before I was born and playing rock and roll. It's always a great conversation, and he's a really nice guy. I talked to him briefly on the phone the other night, and I cannot wait. Happy birthday, Belinda Carlisle, one of my favorite singers of all time, and the lead singer of the Go-Go's. And I remember being 4 years old, seeing the Heaven is a Place on Earth video for the first time on MTV. And who the fuck knew that I would interview her son, Duke Mason, last year, to have a conversation about his grandfather, James Mason, who's one of my favorite actors. So happy birthday, Belinda. You got the beat. So yeah, here is my interview with Alex Call.
Hello?
Hey, Alex. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I am old. I mean, fine.
This is such a great honor. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
So, going back in time, what age did you start gravitating toward music?
I was 11. Grew up in Mill Valley, California.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 11, I went to a social club dance uptown Mill Valley. And then I heard the live. It goes back further than that. But this, when I decided to be a musician, was at this social club dance. There was a band playing Freddie King songs and tequila and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was it. I went home and we had like the Spanish guitar with two bottom strings on it. And I started playing, and that was it. So, But earlier than that, I'd been a radio aficionado since I was like 6 or 7. And
yeah.
I had a radio next to my bed I used to listen to when my parents thought I was asleep.
Yeah.
And
you didn't have any musicians. You didn't have any musicians in your family.
She had the singles of everybody, you know, Roy Orbison and Ricky Nelson and Elvis Presley and all that.
You didn't have any musicians in your family?
The whole family is musical, yeah. My parents were in a light opera company. We had 3 pianos in the house, and frequently there were whole groups of adults sitting around having cocktails and singing Cole Porter songs and Broadway songs and stuff like that. So.
Nice.
Grew up with music. I could always kind of sing a little bit, even when I was 4 or 5, you know.
Yeah.
So
the guitar was your first instrument?
My first instrument was guitar. Well, actually, I played trombone. That's actually a lie. I took trombone lessons in, 6th and 7th grade, but I didn't practice. So I wish I had, because I love the trombone. But that didn't really count. So I instantly, as soon as I picked up the guitar, I started writing songs. And I can still remember my first song I ever wrote when I was 11 years old.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was called?
It went, "The skies are cloudy and gray. It's a good time for going away." I wrote it while standing at the bus stop at Homestead School in Mill Valley one morning.
You
When
guys,
the skies were cloudy and gray, and it was a good time for going away.
you got to start somewhere.
I started right there. No, actually, it was a viable song right from the beginning.
Do you remember the first
Um,
album you ever bought with your own money?
what's that?
Do you remember the first album you ever bought with your own money?
Uh, well, let's see. We grew up with a lot of records in the house, but mostly, Broadway, and like we had Brubeck and Vince Guaraldi and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But my first album that I bought with my own money, I don't know. I was into surf music. It might have been, Dick Dale and the Deltones or something like that, or maybe even the Beach Boys.
Nice.
I liked that stuff a lot. I went to a show at the Cormadera Rec Center one time. It had the Shantays, who wrote Pipeline, right?
Yeah.
And the Safaris, who wrote Wipeout, and they were a double bill. And it was like $1.50. I saw both those bands. I also saw the Ventures there playing Walk Don't Run. So all that stuff completely informed me. As soon as I saw that, my first time I saw that band, Social Club Dance, on stage, the guys playing guitar, I said, that's just it. I am out of the rat race. I was kind of like a skinny runt kid, and I was bullied a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
So I just figured, man, if you're in the band, nobody bullies you. You're cool,
Yeah.
So that was my decision, and
And you get girls too when you're that in that position in the band.
yeah, it's a great disguise. You know what I mean? It really is.
Yeah.
Then I went to boarding school in Arizona for 4 years in high school, and we had a band there.
Mm-hmm.
And did all original songs, pretty much all original songs except for the Paul Butterfield first album. We did that too. And then I graduated from high school in '66, and went right into the Avalon and Fillmore, and Haight Street life. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
music was just everywhere, and that's why I formed the band that became Clover.
Yeah. So, like, when you were going to the Fillboards and stuff, you saw like Big Brother and the Holding Company and Quicksilver and Steve Miller and all them.
Yeah, the first show I ever saw was Paul Butterfield and Quicksilver.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, of course, I was a big Butterfield fan, and this is like Easter break of 1966.
Yeah.
And like a Sunday afternoon show. They each did 2 sets. It was like completely different from what it became later. They alternated sets. There were 4 sets. Anyway, I remember, of course, I wanted to sound like Paul Butterfield, but I wanted to look like Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I tried to look like Quicksilver as quickly as possible.
Yeah, back then, I mean, it was a magical time in San Francisco, and like there was no internet, everybody knew each other, and it just seemed like there was a real camaraderie.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we could talk about this later, maybe if you want. But I'm doing a series of videos right now, and some of it's kind of visiting my musical past and the musical past of all of us. I'll briefly describe the songs. One is called 1955, which is about 1955, the music of 1955, and how early rock and roll really helped break down the color lines,
Right.
And integration really started with that, even though it was horrible in the South at the time. That was Elvis Presley and those people, Bo Diddley, kind of cross-pollinating, was really revolutionary, So, and for this video, I have Bill Gibson and Johnny Cola from Huey Lewis and the News.
Yeah.
I have Bill Kirchen from Commander Cody playing guitar.
Oh yeah.
And Kevin Smith, who's Willie Nelson's bass player, is playing some slap bass on it. And a boogie woogie piano player friend of mine from LA named Rob Rio. And then the next one I'm doing after that is called Summer of Love, and I've got Dave Getz and Peter Albin from Big Brother are going to play on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're playing on it, and then Terry Haggerty and Mark Caron are going to be on there. So, some of the older people the people are dying off, unfortunately, from that era. So I was just, I'm a couple of years younger than those guys, like Getz is 83. I'm 74. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing the guys who are still left over. It's amazing that they're still here.
Yeah, it's still playing. But what's kind of interesting about it and kind of fun is that the old audience still wants to hear that old stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So these old guys, my peers, can go out and play and still have an audience because people want to remember their childhood.
Yeah. They want to be
And at least
constantly.
people like me, I'm always writing new music all the time. So
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I have an audience because of that. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, those bands, that was all really fun to see all those people. I saw them all. Grateful Dead and the Airplane,
Santana.
all that. Yeah, I got a great Santana story.
Okay.
We were playing this place on Haight Street called the Straight Theater.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the Haight movie theater, but it was turned into the Straight Theater.
Yeah.
And we used to they're largely to empty houses. I don't know why people didn't really go there, but one of our shows, Carlos came out. They weren't anything yet. It's the Carlos Santana blues band. He came out and he lay down on stage and put his head inside our drummer's kick drum.
Yeah.
For the whole set.
Wow. Wow.
Those were the days, Tommy, I tell you.
I bet he's deaf now.
Well, probably from his own guitar, though. I mean, what?
Yeah. So how long was it before Clover got signed to Fantasy Records?
It wasn't too long. The first incarnation of the band was called the Tiny Hearing Aid Company. That was 66, 67. And then we turned into Clover when Johnny Chambodi joined our band. And so we were a four-piece. And maybe a year later we got signed. We lived at Muir Beach, right?
Yeah.
And there was this building called the Muir Beach Tavern there, which was torn down in 69. But the tavern had this great big deck in front, and there were wonderful afternoon shows out there on the weekends. Everything free. We were playing there once, and there was a good-sized crowd. A few hundred people, and we. I don't know. We might have had a bunch of Red Mountain wine and maybe some other things, and we were in no shape to play. And we went and we played 1.5 songs. And then we trashed the stage, okay? Mm-hmm. Like foo or something, you know what I mean? We knocked everything over. It was just crazy. We were nuts. But in the audience that day were the guys from Creedence.
Yep.
And they went and told Saul Zaentz about us, and because I guess we sounded good for our song and a half. And so we ended up getting signed. That was probably late 68. I can't remember exactly when that was. Mm-hmm. I think the first album came out in 69 and 70. The dates are a little fuzzy. It might have been 69, 70,
yeah.
70, 71.
I think it's 71.
71 was the last one, maybe?
Or 70.
Huey joined
70, yeah. 70 is the first
72. One. We weren't with Fantasy any longer then. We had a falling out.
Did you guys open for CCR?
We played with them. Where did we play with them? At the Avalon, maybe. No, I think maybe Fillmore West. But we knew them. They became our friends.
Yeah.
We played football against them and stuff. They kicked our ass every time too. But I'm still friends with Stu Cook. Mm-hmm. And Stu, of course, was in a band with McPhee called Southern Pacific in the 90s. Kind of a country band.
Yeah.
So we knew them, and we were both on Fantasy Records, and that was one connection.
Yeah, that first album had such a psychedelic country blues sound. I like that cover of Junior Walker's Shotgun. Was that something you guys did in the clubs?
Yeah, we didn't really play clubs. So, we were playing kind of small halls back then. Mm-hmm. Our home base was a thing in Mill Valley called Brown's Hall, which was next to the 2 a.m. club,
Mm-hmm.
and it had been a Buddhist temple before, and it was just a general all-purpose little hall. There were a bunch of little halls like that, Scout Hall, and so we played those, and we played high schools, high school gyms and stuff. I don't remember playing too many actual clubs back then, but we were all underage anyway.
Yeah.
And later on, we played a lot of clubs. For Sweetwater and Into the Beginning and Uncle Sam's. I can't even tell you how many clubs we played. We played them all.
Yeah.
All the ones in the East Bay, and and we played lots and lots of gigs over the years. And of course, later on, we ended up going to England and doing all that stuff. So.
Yeah. Did you guys go to LA and play with like Poco and the Eagles before they broke?
We didn't play with those guys, but we used to play at the Palomino Club. You know about the Palomino?
Oh, yes. It's legendary.
Yeah. So we were regulars at the Pal. And one of our nights, we opened for Roy Rogers. I swear to God, Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. I mean, not Roy Rogers, the blues guy. I mean,
yeah.
Roy Rogers,
Yeah.
I remember I was in the back room, and there's Dale Evans. Because I grew up watching Dale Evans on TV, right?
Yeah.
And I'm wearing this Oakland A's shirt, and it said the fucking A's on it. And I'm trying to cover up the fuck part, Yeah. Merle Travis was there, and I mean that place was the Palomino was a real authentic place. But we didn't know the Eagles and that kind of scene. I wish I had met those people.
Yeah.
But we didn't really know them. Our scene, because Clover was a little bit behind, it was kind of in between things. Our scene was Clover and Commander Cody, Asleep at the Wheel, the Tubes, kind of the Sons of Champlin. Bands that were a little bit after the first wave of San Francisco bands. That was the initial.
The Tubes, though, they were kind of theatrical hard rock,
Yeah, but we played gigs with them in the beginning when they first came up from Phoenix.
Yeah, back then
they were just starting to do that theatrical stuff then.
Yeah, because back then people would put bands on the bill that were completely unrelated from each other. Like John Cougar Mellencamp used to open for Kiss,
Right. Well, we opened for Alice Cooper once.
Oh, what was that like?
Oh, we got booed off stage. It was fun. We got booed off stage, and people were throwing fireworks at us. It was back in Nassau Coliseum on Long Island.
Yeah.
Like 13,000 people. That was good fun.
Yeah, one of my first real concerts was Alice Cooper. He's quite a showman.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. We played with all kinds of people, but the Tubes were kind of our buddies in a certain way.
Oh, yeah.
The groups I'm talking about, we all knew each other pretty well,
Yeah.
And, of course, we played with, the Airplane becoming Starship. We played with it. We played with like everybody. Big Brother. We played with Steve Miller was kind of a friend, and we opened for him.
Mm-hmm.
My wife asked me the other day for a list of people I played with, and it went on and on. The more and more I thought about it, I said, "Oh, I remember that."
Yeah.
A lot of people. Everybody from Steve Miller to Dr. John to Dave Mason and Thin Lizzy and Graham Parker and Elvis Costello and Nick Lowe and all those. That whole English thing, was really big in our lives.
Yeah, so what made you guys go out to the UK?
Well, we were playing the Palomino, actually, and a night, and it turned out that our first albums, those, like with Shotgun, and there are 2 albums on Fantasy, and these albums had been distributed by a record company in England called Liberty Records, and Liberty had given copies to a bunch of musicians, and so Elvis Costello, Nick Lowe, a bunch of the pub rock sort of people, they all kind of knew Clover. We kind of had a little following over there. We had no idea, right? So we're playing the Palomino one night, and Nick Lowe was there with Jake Riviera, the manager,
Yeah.
and Paul Carrick was there from Ace. Peter Thomas, Chili Williams now plays with Elvis.
Yeah.
So they were all there, and we just started talking with them, and then they came up and visited us in Mill Valley. And Huey and I had a house at the time, and so they came over, and the Dr. Feelgood was playing around, and they came over, and we played with them. You know, they jammed at one of, they came to one of our gigs and played, and so we just started building this connection, and then Jake Riviera and Dave Robinson, who are Stiff Records, but we weren't on Stiff Records, but they managed us. They decided to manage us and bring us to England to see what would happen. So we went over, and we were building a relationship with Nigel Grange from Phonogram Records. Wonderful guy. Nigel Grange passed away recently. Anyway, so we ended up getting signed to Phonogram over there and did 2 albums with Mud Langa producing and all that. You know, that was like, for Clover, that was kind of the big time. You know, we were opening on, major tours. We did Thin Lizzy and Leonard Skinner and Graham Parker and the Rumor and a whole bunch of other gay dates, and made the records. Did Elvis Costello's first album, and we actually did an album with Twiggy. My first cut from of anybody ever doing one of my songs outside of Clover was Twiggy, the model, and so we went to Holland and did an album with her, and that was really fun. So that was kind of our big time. We toured it there, and then we came back to the States and did a couple of extensive tours. Dave Mason and a lot of different people. Atlanta Rhythm Section. I don't know. I can't even remember it all.
Yeah.
It was fun. I remember it was pretty fun.
Did you guys play on Elvis Costello's first album?
We did, except for me and Huey didn't play.
Oh, okay.
But it's the band. It's John McPhee, John Chambodi, Sean Hopper, and our drummer at the time, Mickey Shine.
Yeah, it's a great album. Yeah,
it's a great record. When I heard that, we knew him from around. He was hanging around Stiff Records.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but when I heard it, I had no idea how good he was going to be.
Yeah.
And then I heard this tape on an old Wolin Sack tape recorder, and I went, "Holy shit, man! This is the best thing I've ever heard."
Yeah.
I think the first song I ever heard was Allison. Okay. Yeah. That was fairly impressive.
Yeah. How did you guys come to work with Mutt Lange? Because I consider him like the Phil Spector of England. He's got that distinctive producer sound that, like, when you hear that echoey kind of sound, you can tell right away it's a Mutt Lange production.
Well, Mutt's actually done all kinds of things, though. He's from South Africa, right? He'd been probably the biggest producer in South Africa, and he and his wife Stevie came up to London, which is a natural progression because it's it's a much bigger market. And so he was just kind of up and coming at the time. So I think we were the last album he ever made that wasn't like, quadruple platinum or something.
Yeah.
Because I think the next thing he did was Def Leppard after us. And he did AC/DC. I mean, those records really sound different from each other.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, he did Foreigner and all that stuff. I mean,
and Heart.
Heart. Did he do Heart as well?
Oh, yeah. Later. I think he wrote songs for them, but not produce, actually.
Because Mutt's a great songwriter. Or let's say, Mutt is really good at recognizing what will be a hit song. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I learned a lot about putting songs together from Mutt. I still use the teachings I got from him every day. Cutting and pasting things together and going, what if I put this section over here, and did all that. He really knew what he was doing, and I wish I'd paid even more attention to him. But I got a lot of it. I didn't get enough of the engineering part, but I did get a lot of the production part from him. The arrangement part of things. So we made those records out in Wales at Rockfield Studios, which was just a trip, just a great place to go make a record. this old farm. Do you know about Rockfield?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, Rockfield is an old farm, okay? And then, so you drive in, he goes, it looks like a little Welsh farm. It doesn't, like there's animals around and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And the building's completely unassuming. And then you open the door, and the insides have been completely redone. It's completely modern studios, and the living quarters look like something out of Switzerland or something. I mean, like really nice. But from the outside, it's just old beat up, fading stucco and stuff. So, we made the 2 albums there. That was a fun experience. And there were a lot of people hanging out there that, like Monty Python people and stuff, all kinds of. Well, everybody recorded there at the time. Mm-hmm. It was like where you did. And then, we lived in this house south of London called Headley Grange. You know about Headley Grange?
No.
Okay, so Headley Grange was this house. It's from early 1800s. Big country mansion sort of thing, 3 stories. Very typical British-looking mansion. Set back from the road with a circular driveway and stuff, but not in its prime anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
And its claim to fame was a series of rock and roll bands had been in there. Most recently, Led Zeppelin had recorded their stuff there. All their famous songs are recorded in Headley Grange, in the building, in the room, in the house. They got the famous Led Zeppelin Tommy Bonham drum sound because he set up in the foyer, and there was 3 stories up above of wraparound balconies, kind of.
Yeah.
So you got great big room sound, So, they recorded that was a mobile album they made there. So, mm-hmm. So it was very rock and roll to live down there, and it froze our asses off. It's really cold,
Yeah, you guys
might have been there might have been a couple of ghosts in that house as well. It was an odd place.
I'm sure. you guys knew Phil Lynott and Thin Lizzy. You got any good stories about them?
Oh yeah, that was our first major tour that we did over there, and at first we were a bit mismatched because. We were like, 5 vocals, and I don't know, we kind of had like some disco influence and stuff in us right there. We were crazy musically right then, but we just hit it off with those guys, and they were really wonderful mentors for us. Like we became buds, and we hung out with them, aside from the tour as well. But we did like 30 dates, and Philip is just. No, he was a real star. I'm so sorry he ended up the way he did. Yeah. But I used to watch them every night. We'd do our show, and then I'd go around and find some place where I could watch them because they were really fun to watch. And he was such a master with the audience.
I know he was a true original. He was a true original. He was like Bob Dylan and Hendrix combined.
Yeah, musically, it was really unusual stuff. I mean, you listen to The Boys Are Back in Town. That's not just some 3-chord song. That thing's complicated. Yeah. It really is. And a lot of their music was like that. And besides that, though, they were our buds. And every night after the show, we'd go find some Indian restaurant, or Italian restaurant and throw food around and, mm-hmm. chase girls and all that stuff. And then later on, shortly after that, we were living in this tourist hotel in London, all of us. It's because it was really cheap. And it was like a cheapo hotel, but it had kind of a lobby room with a pool table and a bar, And that became like the hang. And like for a while, it was like rock and roll, the rock and roll hangout, and the Lizzie guys were there a lot. And Philip and Huey became really good friends.
Oh, yeah.
They became tight.
He played harmonica on his solo album.
What's interesting is that the song Huey and I wrote called "I'm Still Alive," mm-hmm. and it's on one of our Clover, I think the last Clover album that we made with Mutt. But it was later on when Philip was supposedly playing Jimi Hendrix in the movie, mm-hmm. and decided to play it so well that he killed himself with drugs. That was actually one of the last songs he ever recorded.
Wow, that's heavy.
Huey brought him over to the record plant, or Studio D or something in Sausalito, and they did They did that song. I've got it somewhere. I've heard it anyway. I can't remember where it is at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And then, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, when you guys wrote "Bad is Bad," you were still in Clover. So, what's the genesis of that song?
That was kind of Huey's song.
Uh-huh.
You know, I didn't have much to do with it, but we used to split things up. I mean, I think we used to kind of play it all together, so it was kind of a group thing. But it's Huey. That's Huey's words and stuff. I have a songwriting credit on there, but I don't consider it like one of my songs.
It's a great song.
I didn't have much to do with it.
Yeah, it's a great song. I know that Nick Lowe recorded a version, right?
He did? I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah.
Nick recorded "Bad is Bad"?
Or he used to do it live, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's what I read.
I gotta be honest with you. It's not one of my favorite songs. I thought it's okay.
Yeah.
It's
I
think Huey. I think Huey's done a lot of interesting, on rock and roll pop music. I don't know if I'd put that in his pantheon of hits for me.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got "I Want a New Drug" and "Working for a Living" and all those songs.
Yeah.
Including the one I suggested to him, which is "Power of Love." That was my title.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He called me up one day. I was living in L.A. at that time because I moved to L.A. later on after Clover broke up. I got my own record deal with Arista, and so I was living in L.A. and Huey used to call and just ask me what was up, and we'd see each other occasionally. And I said, "Yeah, I'm writing a song called Power of Love." He goes, "Oh, Power of Love. Okay, talk to you later." And he called me up, a couple months later, said, "Okay, you're in for this percentage," and I said, "Oh, okay." Worked for me. I made a lot of money on that song.
Oh, that's so cool.
But I didn't have anything to do with it, writing it musically, even though it does sound like one of my songs, Power of Love.
Yeah.
Huey and I musically were kind of joined. We have a common thing, because he was coming more from a R&B sort of background, but I had that in there too, because when I was growing up, we had two channels. Well, it's free, kind of, on the radio.
Yeah.
This is before FM, okay, in San Francisco. There was KDIA, was the black music station over in Oakland. And then there was KYA and KEWB for the top 40. So I used to switch back and forth, because if like Perry Como or something came on, KEWB, I'd switch over to KDIA and listen to Bobby Blue Bland or Ray Charles, So Huey and I kind of have he was a little heavier in the R&B, and I was much more I got into country and bluegrass and stuff, so we kind of mixed those things together. So I think our musical styles are pretty homogenized. It's getting a little complicated here, but not in all particulars, but we do have a commonality. We came from the same background, both of us. So, like "The Power of Love" sounds like a song I could have written.
It's a great song. Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. So, I'm glad that you had something to do with the song. Did you write "Perfect World"?
I wrote "Perfect World" by myself, and what I love about "Perfect World," besides the fact it was like a number 3 or number 2 song, depending on what chart you look at, and that kept me funded for many, many years, is I wrote the horn lines, and the tower guys had to play my horn lines.
Yeah.
But I think it's great, because I'm not a horn player. I just wrote them on a keyboard.
Yeah.
And the way Huey told the story, that the tower guys, like Greg Adams and those guys, they made these charts for the song, and they brought the charts in, and they were really, really loaded up with horn parts. And one by one, Huey got rid of the horn parts, so they were basically just doing my horn parts.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching the video over and over again in the summer of '88 when I was 5 with my mom, and for years and years I didn't see or hear the song until YouTube came. I forgot about it for a long time, and what I like about the song is that it sums up the human condition of people, who live in fantasy to cope with reality. I myself do that. So it's a real feel good song.
Yeah. Well, for me, if you scratch me deep enough and look into my catalog, you'll find that I write a high percentage of my songs are kind of message songs like that.
Hmm.
So that was another thing that was gratifying to me about Perfect World City. One of actually my songs, and that's musically mine and lyrically mine all the way. Unusual chord progression, and the bass part's kind of a weird salsa bass part, and the whole thing. But that actually was a big hit. So that worked for me. That and 8675309, which is another really unusual song
Yes,
musically.
yes. Now I know you've told this story a million times, but what's the genesis of that song?
Sitting in my backyard one morning in Mill Valley, 1981. It was the spring, underneath this cherry tree that had blossoms on it that were falling, just like a Zen woodcut or something. I'm just sitting there playing on a guitar, just trying to write a song with 4 chords. And those are the chords I came up with. And as soon as I hit on that weird chord progression, I knew I had something. And I was just playing the chords over again. And the number just popped out of my head, just popped out of my mouth. I just sang it. And I got, okay. And then Jenny, I didn't know what it was about, but I had the music basically. I read the whole music, in this about an hour maybe
Yeah.
in this morning. And then I had at the time a little 4-track studio up in the corporation yards near San Quentin.
Hmm.
And just this funky little shack. It was on a construction site, kind of. But I had my 4-track studio set up there in a really funky studio. I'm not going you have to stretch to call it a studio. I had a 4-track real tape recorder and, a couple of things. It wasn't a studio. I had no mixing board or anything like that. Anyway, but I could make recordings on it. So I went and made this recording of the track. But I didn't have the verse lyrics. I really didn't know what it was about. And then I didn't really have a door on this shack, by the way. It had like a big piece of wood you'd slide across and then lock it.
Hmm.
So it was open. And in fact, frequently when I was in there, I turned around, there'd be some guy in construction worker with a hard hat eating a sandwich watching me, But anyway, so my friend Jim Keller from Tommy Two-Tone showed up. And he listened to it. And he goes, "What is that?" I said, I don't know what it is. It's, but I already had the name and number singing. I had already sung that part, right? But I didn't have verses. And he says, "It's a girl's number on a bathroom wall." I said, "Oh shit, of course it is." So we wrote those lyrics in like 15 minutes and then sang it together. And that video is on my YouTube channel.
Nice.
I actually found it in the dumpster about 12 years ago when I was moving out of Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the dumpster and I heard this clattering of tapes in this plastic bag, and I opened it up and there it was right on top, the cassette from that day. So that's fairly classic. So that's how I wrote it. I wrote it, the whole thing was from inception to finish was 10 o'clock to 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought it would get on a record or anything. I mean, it's kind of a novelty song, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it got their record, and it wasn't supposed to be a single either. But back then, in the early '80s, the radio stations played albums.
Mm-hmm.
So they played tracks from albums, and they played that track. I think it started really in Southern California. That's where it got going first, and the telephones just went nuts, and it just took off. It's like viral. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
No, they didn't have viral back then. So it became a single, and they did the video, and MTV was just taking off at that time. It was really perfect for MTV.
Yeah.
And there you go. It became a big hit. Still is.
Yeah, I thank God for VH1 The Big 80s because it's been on my playlist since the age of 11 when I first discovered it. It's just so awesome, I'm curious, did you get a lot of hate mail from people with that number?
No, actually, people for the most part really thought it was funny. A few people had to give up the number. They got so many calls.
Yeah.
I've done corporate music and stuff over the years, and I've heard from so many women that they use that number as the brush off number.
Yeah.
From Drunken Romeo, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the guy wakes up the next morning and says, "Oh yeah, I got her number." She opens it up and it's Jenny 8675309.
Yeah.
So no hate mail. Some people really like it. I know there's a family somewhere in Florida or something. They all got 867 as close to the number as they could.
Yeah.
As their whole family, all their phone numbers.
I don't think Squeeze gets hate mail for 853-5937 because that's not about a particular woman, But yeah, I'm one of the few who actually knows. I'm sorry.
Jenny's not about a particular woman either.
Okay.
There's no Jenny. That's part of this story is that Tommy Two-Tone. The actual story of the song is they just made it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's just like Jenny's a good rock and roll name. You know what I mean? Jenny. Like Jenny. But there was no Jenny. There was no story like that. But Tommy Two-Tone needed a better story because they were out there, promoting his album and everything. So they made up all these stories about how it was, Jim's girlfriend and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen so many things. That's the chief piece of disinformation about this song. Over the years, I've seen so many people write, "Oh yeah, that was written about my brother had a friend's cousin who was a girl, and her name was Jenny, and she met the guitar player, and blah blah blah." Mm-hmm. None of that is true. None of that. I just made up the thing sitting in my backyard.
Yeah, it's a great song. It lives on. How did Pat Benatar come to record "Little Too Late"?
Pretty showbiz. I got signed after 8675309. I moved to LA. I got an offer to get signed to Chappell Music, now Warner Chappell these days. Publishing deal, and then Arista Records to make a record. And one of the people at Chappell pressed the song on Pat Benatar because they needed to get the cut. I never met Pat Benatar. I don't know that they were particularly enamored about doing that song,
mm-hmm.
but I did it as a personal favor to this gal who worked at Chappell, mm-hmm. who was also his boyfriend, was a really fantastically successful producer at the time. So I think there was a bit of office politics what got that cut.
Yeah.
I never met her. I heard her play it somewhere, someplace in LA. I forget what gig it was. It was a big arena,
mm-hmm.
maybe Forum or something. But I didn't get to meet her, which is disappointing.
Yeah, it's another good song. She even made a video for it, and I'm glad that she got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I thought that was long overdue.
Oh yeah, she wasn't in? Did she just get in?
She got in last year.
Oh, how about that? Yeah, some of her other songs. I mean, I wish I'd written, Shadows of the Night and stuff. I mean,
D.L. Byron. I interviewed him before he died.
Who's that?
D.L. Byron. He wrote Shadows of the Night, and
okay.
Yeah, he was a New York guy, and he died recently, from what I was told. But I talked to him like 2 years ago. He actually didn't get to meet her as well, so
he didn't. No.
Yeah.
Well, maybe she's just a hermit. I don't know.
Yeah, I love your first solo album. I think it's a lost gem of epic proportions. I hate to put labels on things, but it's a lost power pop gem. I consider it.
Well, that's very nice of you to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was interesting. I have regrets with that album.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't as focused on who I should have been, who I was back then.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Tommy. I'm nowadays. I'm the artist I should have been back then.
Yeah.
Now I know who I am. Whether people like it or not, it doesn't matter to me because now I know who I am. I didn't even own an acoustic guitar back then. I mean, what kind of songwriter was I? I wrote everything on a Telecaster.
Yeah.
Or a piano, But I don't know. I just that album has some good moments to it. And the other thing is, many people made this comment that there's no bass on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a bit of speculation that the producer really didn't like the album and kind of didn't put enough bass on it. I'm not the one who says that. Other people have told me that.
Uh-huh.
Have said, well, how come there's no bass on your record? And that might have hurt it. But in terms of the business of the radio part of it, my single was Just Another Saturday Night.
Yeah.
And that was too controversial for some of the major stations, notably in Dallas. We were waiting for Dallas to go on that song. The song was at 101 in the Hot 100. So it was bubbling under, as they say in the charts. And if they had picked it up, if Dallas had picked it up, it might have gone, and gone wherever it ended up. But we did a bunch of things wrong with that, I should have gone, that's my direction right there. And I should have done it with an acoustic guitar, and it's much more like Springsteen than the way we did it, But I had zero control over that record. Anyway.
I still hear Springsteen when I hear that song, and I mean the subject matter is pretty bleak. Were you like reading a newspaper and came up with it?
No, I'm just I'm a person I'm involved with the world of I'm a historian and I'm a news junkie. Like some people are sports junkies. I'm a news junkie. I'm involved with the world and I care about making the world a better place.
Yeah.
And so that was my commentary on, come on, kids are shooting each other,
Yeah.
every day. It was just starting then. Now, look at it now. Look how bad it is.
Oh, yeah. Worse.
It's terrible.
Way worse.
It's terrible. I did a new version of that recently. I put it on my YouTube. I made it about today's gun violence, about shooting at a mall.
Yeah.
It's just not just shooting gang members anymore. You're shooting grandmas, and kids at a mall because people have lost their minds and killing each other with stupid automatic weapons,
Yeah.
So that, that whole thing, my writing, I can go bleak.
Mm-hmm.
I can go bleak and get pretty angry,
Yeah, of course.
I just want to call people out on their stupidity,
Yeah.
And I want to inspire people to be better,
Yeah.
I'm still kind of a kid of the 60s. You're a lot younger than I am. But, when I was growing up, the 50s were a bad time in my book.
Yeah.
Because people were hard. Like, the thing was fist fighting, okay?
Right.
And I grew up with bullies and it pushed me around, and I was a wimp. I didn't fight back or anything. And so when the 60s came along, and all of a sudden it was peace, love, and groovy, man, I loved that. I thought that, and world peace, and and environmental causes, and anti-racism, and all that, and free love. I just thought all that was the greatest thing, and I'm so sad that it slipped away from us.
Yeah,
the world's even in worse shape now.
Oh yeah.
So
it's awful. I mean, not to get political here, but when you think about it, right, in the 50s, TV was telling the world that everything was all right, and then when the '60s came after Kennedy was assassinated, everyone was like, "No, it's not all right. These are all these problems here." Right now, everyone has a different version of what's not all right, and everyone's confused. You know?
Yeah. Now you still have the same currents working as you had back then. Really, you have the basic problem with America is white supremacy,
Yeah.
and that's what are we facing now? It's the same thing, white supremacy.
Right.
People are racist, and that's really the cause of the whole problem of America. Race is the cancer in the heart of America, unfortunately. It's because when they say right-wing politics, it's really just racism. You know, when you boil it down, it really is just racism.
100%.
Donald Trump's the racist in chief. You know what I mean? He's like giving everybody the license to be as racist as they want.
It's awful, is what it is.
Terrible.
Tell me about making that music video, because I remember it so well on VH1, the big '80s back in the day. For just another Saturday night.
Yeah. Well, it was really fun. You know, I mean, you know, I'm sure you, as a student of all this, you understand that MTV was a lot of humor back then.
Yeah.
You know, it got kind of serious later. You know, kind of vague videos. You know, just I don't know. But the early days, it was really funny. Almost all the videos were funny.
Yeah.
So we made a funny video, and it was really fun to do. You know, I got to dress up as a newsman, and you know, it was really fun.
You got to eat a TV dinner.
The most fun days I ever had in the music business were making that video.
Yeah, you got to have a TV dinner and all that stuff. It was very similar to like Jackson Browne's early music videos, like Lawyers in Love and stuff.
Yeah, well, everybody back then, it was kind of funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Huey's early videos are funny.
Oh yeah.
A lot of fun. You know, roly poly fish heads. You know, I mean, it was Devo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, even the Tommy Two-Tone video was silly.
Oh, yeah.
You know, completely silly. So that was really fun. You know, in retrospect, if I had built my artist career, I would have done a completely different thing. I would have done it in black and white, with me walking down some really bad streets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Singing it with a black leather jacket and a white T-shirt on. You know what I mean? I would have done a whole different thing. But I probably would have played the song differently too. Would have played it with acoustic guitar and a lot more stripped down.
That girl that played your anchor, she was gorgeous. Do you remember her name?
No idea. She just came from Central Casting. You know, they just put it out there.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I never saw those people again. I don't remember any of their names.
That's sad. Sometimes there's information on the internet of who people are in music videos, but a lot of them just the names are like lost forever, you know, and it's pretty sad. You wrote your memoir, 8675309 Jenny, the song that saved my ass for a while. What made you want to write it?
Well, I'm one of my arrows is I'm a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've written a bunch of things. I've written some other books as well that are on Amazon, and I've written a bunch of stuff, and I've written screenplays, and you know, I write a lot of essays and stuff. So part of it was just that I just started writing, and then I also had the thought that because 8675309 had done really well commercially over the years, I thought that my book would sell, which it didn't at all. It actually, the song might have saved my ass for a while, but the book ruined my ass for the rest of my life because I spent a bunch of money trying to promote it and stuff, and it completely didn't sell. But I don't know. I just wanted to write the memoir, and you know, writing for me is a lot of work, but it's a joy to write. You know, to put paragraphs together and chapters, and it was fun to remember some of that stuff and memorialize it. My kids can read it, you know. You know, their kids maybe someday will read Boy, Grandpa was really weird, you know.
Yeah.
Grandpa,
writing
Grandpa did.
writing
Grandpa did what?
writing a book can be tedious. Did you find that to be so?
Uh, I found it to be physically hard more than anything else because I'm not a typist, believe it or not. I don't know how to type. I've tried to learn. I just can't type. My fingers are clumsy or something. So that part is physically hard, like my back and my arms and stuff. My neck would hurt. But no, writing itself is like it's like any other detailed work. It's you get into it. It's like writing is just like recording music. You get into it. You get detailed. You go like, this sentence is going to be perfect. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it involved. I mean, it took a long time to write that thing because I rewrote it a couple times.
Yeah.
So it probably took me 5 years to get it done.
Wow.
But I've written other books in a shorter time.
Mm-hmm.
My other books have to do with rock and roll. Mm-hmm. I have a baseball book, and I have well, I do have another rock and roll book, but it's like comedy.
Nice.
And I wrote an epic Bronze Age history book.
Yeah.
So completely not rock and roll.
So real quick, that video series you mentioned earlier. So like, how did that project come about, and like, what's the status of it? Is it out there?
It's starting to get out there. I'm a big fan of Playing for Change. You know about Playing for Change, right?
Busking.
No, well, kind of. It's a YouTube site called Playing for Change.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Oh, you check it out. It's
okay.
Wonderful music, and they started recording people on the streets years ago, about 15 years ago. And what they do is they take a song and they record people all over the world doing this song, and then they put all the video pieces together, and you have music that would never exist, except for the way they've done it. So I really like that. So I thought I'd imitate it with my song "Perfect World."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm up here in central Canada, when we're right in the heart of Indigenous country, Indian country, if you will. And so I used a couple of Indigenous players, a drummer and a bass player, and then a couple other musicians from here, and then some of my old buddies from Marin, Mark Karen and Lauren Rowan, and my sax player Alex Merzen. Who else is on there? Johnny Cola.
Nice.
So I did it, and I thought, well, I'll call this the Peace and Happiness Project. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first one, and it's on my YouTube channel. I have a playlist, only 2 in there so far. Perfect World and another song that Lauren Rowan and I wrote called Circle of Friends, where I have a much more of a Marin-oriented lineup of people. But then, so that's the second one, and then I've got these 3 other ones coming 1955 with Gibson and Cola and those people. The Summer of Love with the guys from Big Brother. And then the third one is called Peace and Happiness, and it's with British pub rockers,
Mm-hmm.
Brinsley Schwartz. I got Ian Gom and Bob Andrews, and I have Jack O'Hara and Audie DeLone from Eggs Over Easy, and then a couple other people. And so that one's going to be the English pub rock thing. So I'm kind of doing different periods and stuff, and I have others in the plan. So it's just sort of a to-do project for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying learning video editing, so it's another form of detailed work that I like to do.
Nice. It's good to stay creative.
Well, for me, it's staying alive.
Yeah.
What am I doing? I'm living in a small town in Canada. I'm not out touring around or anything. So these projects help me stay focused. It's fun. I enjoy it. Recording and writing and doing videos and stuff like that is what I like to do more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any upcoming shows or new music you'd like to plug?
Well, I just put a single out on YouTube. It's called Sacred Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of my things is I'm an environmentalist. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
very, very pro saving the world, and so this is a song I wrote some time ago, but I made a new recording of it, and a good buddy of mine named Ricky Sanchez, who is a recording engineer, worked on the Arista album back when he was a kid. And he's a member of NARAS, and he actually offered to submit it to the Grammys for submit it into the nomination process. Not that it's nominated, but submit it for nomination for this new. They have a new Grammy award called Social Change, Songs for Social Change.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I just put that out. If you want to plug that and tell everybody, and go look on YouTube, subscribe, and like my song. I need subscriptions and likes right now.
I subscribed.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, what's that single called again?
Sacred Earth.
Sacred Earth. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And I'm going to be plugging. I made an album in Nashville in 2005, and that's on YouTube, and I'm going to be putting that out. That's kind of another thing, but there's some good music.
Excellent.
I kind of forgotten about it, but a bunch of songs I wrote there, and great players on the recordings.
Outstanding.
Nashville.
Alex, thank you so much for coming on today, and I hope you have a great rest of your summer, and stay in touch and be safe out there.
All right. Well, you take care, too. I'm sorry, you better look out when you interview me. You can't get me to shut up, right?
It's okay. It's okay. They want to hear you, not me.
All right, Tommy. Nice talking to you.
You too, sir. Keep on rocking.
Say hi to everybody. Hi, everybody. All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Alex Call. Ain't he a cool dude? Oh, what a nice guy, huh? That was a great conversation. And I love that he's still doing what he does, And go check out Sacred Earth on his YouTube channel and subscribe. The music videos that we were talking about for Just Another Saturday Night and so forth is on there. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.